was contacted when I was 12. And I said, no. I said, I need to come up normal. I need to have a normal childhood. And I was attracted. I was like 12, and I had an abridged version of The Secret Doctrine. I bought that because I saw the picture of Blavatsky in the front and said, oh my God, what is this? And I bought it and read it. I didn't understand a whole lot of it, but I actually started reading The Secret Doctrines when I was 12. And I'm still trying to get through them for the 100th time or whatever, however many times it takes. And I was saying to myself, well, I didn't know then that I had said no. But I said no. They came back to me when I was 22, 10 years later. And I said, yes, I'm interested. And, you know, this is the law. They can come 3 times to you. And if you say no the 3rd time, then you have to ask for them to come to you because of cosmic law. So I accepted.
Because of free will.
Yeah, free will. They don't want to violate free will. The fallen ones will.
Trouble too, yes.
Yeah, the fallen ones will violate it. It doesn't matter to them at all.
Yeah.
But the masters will not.
That's right.
So I said, yes, I'm interested. And then they began to teach me more consciously. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes a long time to formulate the question. Like I said, I figured 20 years to get that one question figured out. Who's delivering it now? One other question that I ask, because a friend of mine, and this was after I'd been in the teachings, of course, I ran into an old friend of mine I used to play music with, and we hadn't seen each other in 20 or 30 years. I don't know how long it had been. And we started hanging out together. And I always thought he was metaphysical, but back then we weren't really too upfront about that. He was. As it turned out, we're both on the same page, pretty much. And one day I was telling him about all this automatic writing I was doing, and he said, well, pardon me, but have you ever thought of asking who's dictating through you? I said, I looked kind of strangely, I'm sure, and I said, gosh, no, I never have. And I know the law. I know that if you ask, you receive. If you don't ask, sometimes you don't receive. So next time I heard the voice, I said, who's dictating through me? Instantly, Serapis comes back. Instantly. I said, oh, okay. And I count that as the beginning of my conscious dictation. And that's about where the book 1 starts. It may have some pre-information, but I have 12 books that I wrote before that. So they're unpublished, and they probably won't be published till I'm gone, if they ever get published. But that was the turning point for me, was that I was going to do this consciously. And that was, I mean, I was doing it consciously, but I hadn't taken responsibility for being the messenger. And when I did that, it was in 1994, I went from the July conference the next week to a hippie gathering. I didn't even know it was a hippie gathering until I got there, at Eugene, the Oregon Country Fair. It was there that the masters came to me. And I had all this phenomena going on. I talk about that in my first book. I had all this phenomena going on, and people, just strange stuff. You know, people appearing for me that weren't there later, and different stuff like that. And finally the masters came to me and said, well, we're making a contract with you. And what is it? What is it for you? So I actually wrote out a contract, signed it, and burned it, and went through a whole period of adjusting that contract. This was in the summer of '94. What happened was, as I made that contract, that was in the summer before I ended up getting, you know, sacked at work. It was a dangerous thing, as I said. Oh boy. Yeah. So I made and signed the contract, and I said, yes, this is what I want. And it was then that I finally, after I got back and realized I was going to school to teach again in September, I thought, oh God. I had already noticed that by December, where will I be? You know, I thought, well, I didn't get to December. And come January, right after the first of the year, Serapis comes to me and he says, well, how do you like your contract? I said, I don't know. I guess it's fine. And El Moria says, well, do you want to make any changes? And I said, well, why? What's going on? He said, well, we really have just started your contract. It will start now. And if you need to make some changes, we're offering you that assistance. I don't remember what I changed, but I did state a couple of things more clearly.
You actually got to make your contract?
Well, I had to ratify
Consciously?
it. See, I had to ratify in the physical plane what my higher self already had contracted to do in the etheric.
Okay,
For
so
it to
that's
be
what you were
as
doing.
above,
Okay.
so below.
Yes.
For it to be,
Because that's usually where they make it, don't they?
yeah, of course I had the contract before I ever even took this body, or before I ever took my first body, I had a contract. But this contract was very specific, and it meant for me to ratify the fact that I wanted to be a teacher, a messenger for the Great White Brotherhood. And that meant from then on that everything was going to change. And believe me, it did. It did. It was drastic. I said, you mean you guys had something to do with me leaving school? And yes, that was the end of your training. It was the end of my probation. They said, well, you've learned. You learned what you came to learn.
That's right.
You learned that school isn't where school is supposed to be.
That's right.
And that they're not teaching what they need to teach. They don't even have an idea of what they're supposed to teach or how they're supposed to teach it. It's teaching for the system and not for education,
That
and
is
not
correct.
for the kids.
That is correct.
So I said, okay, so be it. I accept all of this. I accept it all. Let's go. And from then on, it was like, boy, it was like a madhouse after that for a while.